So there's this classic RPG called Chrono Trigger, and one of the characters in Chrono Trigger is literally a frog with a sword. His name's Frog. He used to be Glenn from the Kingdom of Guardia, but now he's Frog. So anyway, this is a pure intelligence build, and it's Frog. It's Glenn of Guardia. And we've got almost 50 vigor, almost 50 intelligence. That's it. That's all we got. There's all the spells. Level 80 works really, really well for these types of builds. After my Sword Saint build with pure dex, I thought, hey, let's do pure intelligence. I love intelligence builds in Elden Ring. We're using some stuff I've not used before, Swift Glintstone Shard. It's very fast, it's good at harassing people and chasing people. Glintstone Stars, it's good at spamming at people who are just standing around. Slicer, best spell in the game. Carian Greatsword, not a good spell. Gavel of Haima, ton of hyper armor. Carian Piercer, great spell. Cannon of Haima, great spell. We've got the Carian Grandeur, Ash of War, because Frog uses it to cut a mountain in half. And we've also got Lion's Claw, infinite hyper armor. What is literally just hyper armor. Infinite hyper armor is basically it's like saying the same thing twice. It's pointless. Hyper armor means it can't be interrupted. Super armor is what we should be calling these things, but we don't. We call them hyper armor. But anyway, Carian Greatsword, it sucks. If you manage to hit somebody with it, though, you can do some fun stuff with it. It's a very interesting spell. It's just not very good. It's slow enough that everybody just dodges it on reaction. But if you use it for something like a turn and burn, that's when you can actually get some use out of it. Carian Grandeur, I love to death. It's one of the... I saw it in the trailer for Elden Ring, and my first build used it, and it was one of those things where I was like, in PvP this will never hit, and then it ends up hitting about 50% of the time, which is absolutely incredible. Check these dudes out. Look, they summoned a blue, and now watch what they do. They're going to attack the blue. They think he's the invader, which is just insane to me. This guy's using Adula's Moonblade, so let me talk a little bit about Adula's Moonblade. For as bad a spell as Carian Greatsword is, Adula's Moonblade is that, but a little better, but it costs more FP. And it doesn't make it better enough to justify that increased FP usage, in my opinion. So I'm not using it. I'm just going to stick with Carian Greatsword. It's a nice turn and burn. It has insane hit stun, so if you actually manage to hit somebody with it, there's a good shot you can get like a true combo out of it. Gavel of Haima into Carian Piercer is super fun. I really enjoy that. We don't have a lot of poise on this build, so we are using the Bull Goat Talisman to try and take some of the give us not. It doesn't give you poise. It basically decreases the amount of poise damage you take. But we're just kind of taking whatever we can get. I think with the Bull Goat Talisman, our poise says it's at 41, but I don't think that's accurate. Or maybe it's 46. It's one or the other. Forgot to mention plus 15 weapons on this build, by the way. The Wondrous Physic, I showed off that it increased our weapons AR. We saw that, but one thing you couldn't see is that it's also increasing the magic damage on your Ashes of War, as well as the magic damage on your spells. And it's only like 10%, but 10% of magic damage increased it's all magic damage. So even though it's kind of nerfed in PvP, from I don't know the nerf exactly, but let's say it's 25% and it gets nerfed down to 10%. This is a substantial nerf. But when it comes to hitting somebody with a spell, the spell is just pure magic damage. So an extra 10% of pure magic damage is nothing to sneeze at, even though it is fully nerfed. Now you could say like, oh well, you could justify using another Wondrous Physic besides extra magic damage, and you could, but I just like to see the big number. I just like to see the big number. I would also like to point out, when I say pure build, people were like, oh, but you leveled your hit points. Yes, of course I leveled my hit points. I've been telling you to level your hit points for 6 months. When I say a build is pure int, or pure dex, pure intelligence, or pure dexterity, I mean that our damage type it's just pure dex. It's not dex faith, it's not dex int, It's not int faith, it's not int strength, it's pure intelligence, pure dex, etc. That's where our damage is coming from. There is no reason to not level vigor in this game. There's no reason. You don't have to be a glass cannon. In fact, if you try and make a glass cannon, you're probably just making a window or a mirror with like a shotgun duct taped to it. It's no good. There's no reason. Alright, enough ranting. Broadsword. Not very good because of the range, right? Lion's Claw. Now it's good. Now it has range. It also has the highest AR of the straight swords. And people like to be in your face in this game anyway. Well, sometimes. And if people like to be in your face, the broadsword's fine. It's, you know, people who are in your face are going to get hit by the broadsword. That's nice. And then on top of that, we also have Carian Slicer. So who cares? Who cares about range? We can just switch to the Slicer if we need to. It's a running attack that's very fast, and it does almost 300 damage. Like, you know, the broadsword is fine. On another build, if this was like a pure strength build, for example, we probably wouldn't want to run. Probably wouldn't want to run the broadsword. But on this build, oh, it's fine. Or I guess if we were on a strength build and we wanted to run the broadsword, maybe we would put Sword Dance on there. Something that would give it some range. Sword Dance or Spinning Slash. Just something that could give it some range. But the AR on this thing, like, you can't argue with it. The Lord Sworn straight sword is the third best straight sword for this build. It's broadsword, longsword, Lord Sworn. And then I actually farmed a Noble Slender Sword for this build, but the AR was so bad I was like, okay, never mind. And then I thought, well, let's try the broadsword. I hadn't tried the broadsword on any build yet. It had the highest AR. It just seemed like, yeah, just go ahead and try and use it. Since we started as prisoner, we don't have a lot of strength. We don't have a lot of dex. We just kind of got to use what we can use. And broadsword it fits the build because Frog uses a broadsword, and it fits the build because it doesn't have a lot of stat requirements. And it fits the build because it has the highest damage number. Rather than make another build that used the Carian Knight Sword, I wanted to do a different weapon for this build. Because in the past, the builds that I'd made that were intelligence builds, they were all just like a Carian Knight Sword build. That tends to be more of a strength intelligence build, whereas this is just a pure intelligence build. Yeah, but Saint, you're still using a straight sword. Yeah, I know, but I don't have a lot of stats, and I really like straight swords. Get off my back. Mom, this is more like my pickaxe mage, except instead of the pickaxe, we've got Carian Grandeur and the frog flip on the straight swords. And this build isn't even really finished yet. I'm curious if I could use Clayman's Harpoon on this build. I think that would be kind of fun to play with. I would like to try the Ice Spear, Ash of War, on the Clayman's Harpoon. I think that could be neat. But the Talismans, we also are using like Godfrey's Icon right now, which is not really that useful. It would probably be better for us to get the Graven Mass Talisman and improve our spells. But I haven't opened up the Consecrated Snowfield yet. And once I hit level 80 and I started doing invasions with this build, it's not finished, but it's still good enough. And that's mostly just all thanks to Carian Slicer being as good as it is. It can get you out of some rough situations. But we've still got some stuff to put on this build. We've still got some stuff to add to it. And I will continue to do that. But I was really impressed with level 80 for a one-stat type build. It worked really well for Dex, now it's worked really well for Intelligence. I suspect it would work really well for anything. And that's it, that's the video. I'll check back in and I'll upload another video once I get all the talismans and everything sorted. And until then, thanks for watching. Play Chrono Trigger. Later, y'all.